January 20th, 2024, 3 years after Biden took office, the worst president in our history, I believe, or at least in, in this in the last 100 years or so, or even more than that, maybe. But anyhow, the presidential election season is kind of formally underway with the completion of the Iowa caucuses and of the solid victory of President Trump and his campaign, winning a substantial majority of 30% over the nearest competitor. And he's heading in with a pretty good lead looking into the upcoming primary in New Hampshire. In fact, it's been my opinion all along that he would get the nomination unless something stopped him from getting it, and whatever that might be. And it doesn't look like that the roadblocks are in the way. For one thing, the first trial that the Democrats have lined up for him, the D.C. Trial, has been delayed because of an appeal to the appellate court. Actually, originally I think went to Supreme Court, but actually Jack Smith, the prosecutor, went to Supreme Court, and it was remanded down to the appellate court for D.C. Circuit. And so right now, this issue, of course, is the issue about presidential immunity, where Trump is trying to claim that he's immune to prosecution for any official act in office, which in fact he is. The real ultimate issue, I think, is going to turn down was the election challenge, an official act of office or not, and that's and then we have the case of the D.C. charges themselves. Now, I want to go through those for you before you get too upset. I just want to kind of explain what they're doing and why I think that those charges themselves are really nonsense. So let's go to those charges. The charges are one count of conspiracy to defraud the United States because of his because what they're claiming to be widespread efforts to spread false claims about the November 2020 election while knowing they were not true. And of course, that's kind of hard to do. They understand what his state of knowledge was. Just because people told him it wasn't true, if they told him that, doesn't mean he knew it. I mean, haven't you had people tell you a lot of things that they say are true, but you don't necessarily know they're right? One count of conspiracy to obstruct official proceeding due to alleged organization and planning by Trump and his allies to disrupt the electoral vote certification. That was a January 6th issue. One count of obstruction and attempt to obstruct official proceeding. It was tied to Trump and his alleged conspirators' efforts to after the election and until January the 7th to block official certification of the Congress. And one count of conspiracy against the rights of voters, basically because of this same issue. And so what I want to say is that you can see that any logical person would realize these charges are largely nonsense because, first of all, defraud the United States. I mean, fraud is an economic term. I mean, Biden is a fraud on the United States with this guy's definition, but all kinds of things. He lies all the time. I mean, he says the borders are secure when they're obviously not secure. It can go through a lot of things. I mean, politicians making false statements and turning into a criminal charge would pretty much put politicians all in jail. So that's kind of nonsense. You can see also that there's no evidence that he actually in any way wanted to disrupt the proceedings of Congress. He did pursue a variety of challenges because he thought they were warranted and he thought he was getting short shrift with various courts. But to the merits of the cases, this is truly Jack Smith making up stuff, which he's known to do. He's known to make up charges and stuff, such as the case of a governor of Virginia that he got convicted and unanimously thrown out of the Supreme Court some time back. So regardless of whether you love Trump or not, I think these charges are just completely bogus. But the question is, of course, the degree to which these represent official acts of president or acts basically of his personal campaign and the effort to win the election. I think that may be another issue as to how the courts will decide that. And of course, and that is what will really play a lot into what happens next. My guess is that that since this appellate court panel they have is certainly two Democrats to one probably moderate Republican, and the Democrats are pretty full scale. I think that they're going to rig it up so that the trial can go ahead in the lower court. But by the way, if you like these videos, again, please give me a like. It would help out with the algorithm. We're looking for more new subscriptions, as always, and of course, I will of course be posting this on Rumble as well. So you can subscribe there as well if you just happen to blunder into this one somehow on a social media account. Yeah. So that's kind of the way I see this. That they are going to basically they can't strike down presidential immunity without basically having it go to the Supreme Court and really delaying things a lot longer. Okay. So they're going to have to argue that's a legitimate premise. They'll probably try to argue, and I suspect that this was done these actions were done on his own personal behalf, such as, let's say a president, for instance, was engaged in financial fraud in his personal dealings while in office. That wouldn't be an official act of the presidency. It would be his personal dealings. Let's say he didn't pay his income tax. That would be an issue that after he's out of office, he could be charged with. So that would apply to anybody. Of course, maybe the Democrat wouldn't be. I don't know about that, but that's kind of the way that would go. So that's what I'm expecting. Now, on the merits of the actual case, I think a fair court would simply throw this thing out on us immediately. But remember, we have an anti-Trump judge there. And the jury is probably going to be 100% Democrat unless the prosecution really goofs up in their during the jury selection process, because obviously if they find anybody that's known to be a Republican and a Trump supporter, particularly that's on the jury, they'll just use a peremptory challenge and remove that person. There'll probably only be one person that type statistically that would come in anyhow. And they'll have that many peremptory challenges easily. So I think they'll have their all-Democrat jury, an all-Democrat judge that will be really quite willing to convict regardless of the merits of the case. And that's the problem Trump faces here. And so we'll see how that goes. But that's the first hurdle. And we don't know when this trial will occur. It won't occur before Super Tuesday, I don't think, because the machinations in the appellate process will put it past that. And it could run into the trial in Florida, which is scheduled for right before Memorial Day, around that time. So we'll have to see on that. But the question, getting back to the real presidential election, which what I'm really trying to talk about here, is since Trump is likely to win the nomination, I think, at this point, and I think that there are merits for maybe going with a different candidate. You could argue because this would all go away and that we could just be focused on the issues. But the fact is, this is what's likely to happen at the moment. And so the real problem is, though, if sometime after that and before he is convicted in one of these cases, most of the polling suggests his approval rating, which would be very competitive with Biden into this situation, might drop off a lot. So that's one of the things we got to look at. But and of course, it does look to be an interesting. I think it's still an interesting question. If he's convicted before the convention, would they go ahead with him in that state or not? I mean, of course, he'll have a majority of the delegates in the first ballot victory lined up almost for sure. And they are committed to vote for him. So that's something we don't know. I'm wondering, though, if they could pass a rule ahead of that if you're convicted of a felony, that until you're exonerated, you couldn't, be the nominee. That would be a possibility. But I don't know that would happen. I mean, so the Republicans, though, are all signed up here. I mean, one by one. I mean, Senator Scott of South Carolina just endorsed Trump. And of course, Nikki Haley had appointed him to the Senate, so I think she probably feels a little stabbed in the back there. But I think maybe he's looking at the vice presidential pick, maybe. I don't know, just possible. And you could see that would be one way that they might try to balance the ticket, as they like to balance them nowadays. So that's possible. But I just kind of running through this, that these are the risks that we run here on this election. Um, but what Trump has to achieve, I think, is to prevent any of these convictions from occurring before the election. And if he can do that, and if he can win the election, then the situation changes quite a bit, I think. If he can't, I think we're in real trouble. And particularly at some point in the process, his name is going to be on the ballot no matter what happens to him. And that makes things a lot more spicy, let's say. And right now it seems like what I find is interesting is that these legal hurdles are just dismissed out of hand on the conservative media as being something. Well, I agree with them. I just said I think they're invalid, absurd charges. For instance, in the D.C. case, does that really matter if you have an all-Democrat judge and jury hearing the case, and would there likely to be an appeal before the election that would be successfully, won? I mean, these things go on for a long time. And so that's kind of where I think we're kind of headed here. And to me, it's very nerve-wracking to be in a situation like this. I mean, this would be challenging enough if it wasn't for the fact that you have so many of the media is pretty much backing Biden no matter what he did, and so that leaves us in a real jam. And I hear now he's raised something on the order of $147 million already, and he not even have to fight a primary. The Democrats are flush with money. They are the party of the rich right now. Historically, everybody likes to say Republicans, party of the rich, but in reality, Democrats, party of the rich, and so that's what we're dealing with here. And so, other than your Fox News and I guess your Newsmax stations and a few other things, I'm not sure. I don't watch enough of News Nation to really know. I think they're trying to be centrist, but I don't watch enough of it to know for sure. So, but that puts us in a bad jam. Anyway, that's kind of what I think about that at the moment. I want to kind of go through that, but what the trial would be in D.C. And like I say, to me, those charges are bogus, but it's also pretty clear that this judge is not going to dismiss them. It would have to go to appeals court. Now, the other issue is, to what degree will the Supreme Court support Trump? In other words, I guess they could hear some kind of appeal before the trial, which is an unusual process, but they could theoretically do it and throw these things out as being, wrong. But more than likely, it usually, like the case of the governor of Virginia I mentioned from years ago, he was convicted and defeated and out of office, long time before the appellate process eventually exonerated him. And I don't know. I mean, on the other hand, I think I think that DeSantis has a lot going for him, and although there's a lot of emotionalism for the Trump people because the way they operate, he has the advantage that his policies are largely the same as Trump's. He may be a little bit more conservative on the social issues because Trump is a bit more on the pragmatic side, I think, but pretty much the same policies. They both are going to work to end this illegal immigration mess we've got. They both are for low taxes and so forth. I mean, you go through all the issue sets, and if you even look at DeSantis on abortion, maybe he's stronger on that issue, but he ain't going to get it passed at the federal level anyhow. There's no way it's getting through the Senate. So, nobody's going to ban abortion at any level at the U.S. level, I don't think, is get through the Senate. I don't see that happening because it's unlikely the Democrats are going to fall below 41 senators. Even in a Republican landslide, they would still have at least 41 senators. So, anyway, that kind of rounds up kind of what we're looking at here. On the case of Haley, I know that she's touting herself as a number 2, and she's going to win the second place, I think, in New Hampshire. it'd be a shocker if she really beat Trump in New Hampshire, I think. And even if she did, I don't think she's going to win too many other places. I don't think she's going to win there either. But but the point is, I don't see the basic attack on her that she's liberal. I don't think that's the real issue with her. I think the real issue with her is she may be a bit gaffe prone, and that could be an issue. And remember that although the Democrats would really love to have a female president, not if it's a Republican. So so I still see that. So I mean, I'm seeing some people I follow on X that really absolutely no way, but I don't see that she's that bad. It's just there's better candidates, but at the same time, it doesn't look like DeSantis has any chance of beating Trump either. Because I mean, the only way he would get in again would be if something were to be a showstopper for Trump. At a minimum, that would be a conviction on these felony charges. But I don't know. Can we though dismiss the merits of these charges so much and really discredit the court in D.C. so much and get by with it? Then you get into the whole issue that the judge is black, and of course, then we're saying we're being racist, and you know how that goes. But nonetheless, that's kind of the way it is, and so I don't know. Well, that's that for that. The other issue I get into is we've just a couple of videos ago we were discussing this border deal issue, which apparently is still churning around. And Senator Langford and are still trying to negotiate with Schumer on this border thing. The good news is we got through a whole other week and it still hasn't been passed through the Senate. So, but I don't have much of faith that that's going to be a good bill by any means. But again, that's something that'll probably be coming up in the week ahead, probably after New Hampshire, and we'll see what happens. I don't think that the House, it sounds like the Speaker of the House is kind of on enough hot water over the continuing resolution that I don't think he's going to, promote that bill if it's anything like we think it is, with 5,000 illegals coming in every day. I don't think that they're going to promote that. We'll see. But so that'll be coming up. But the danger here is if it does pass the Senate, and it would take about 9 Republicans to go along with cloture on that, we would end up having a possibility that the Democrats might try to pass it through the House with what's called a discharge petition. Now that takes a 2/3 vote. But the question is, can we keep the Republicans in line enough to deny them a 2/3 vote? And if that ends up being the case, then we can block it in the House, and that would be a good thing. And then hopefully get back to some renegotiation to try to get key elements of H.R. 2 in it, or else just kill the thing outright. Because in my opinion, I don't think prolonging this war in Ukraine is a good idea. I think that it'd be good instead to take a position of negotiating with the Russians to try to end the war and use any aid we have as a way to pressure Ukraine into entering these negotiations rather than being obstinate about it, and see what the best deal we could get rather than let this thing continue. Anyway, that's what I think about that. We'll be wrapping this up now, and like I said before, this will go on Rumble as well as on YouTube. And of course, as always, my addresses and my social media accounts are in the description below. And you can follow me on what as we call it now, X, or Twitter used to be called, to see any updates I have on a variety of subjects, not just this one. So until next time.